fine, bordering on excellent. Chapter 1. The worst cafe in probably this postcode. I found the reviews on a Tuesday morning in October, which is when I find most things I wish I hadn't. Tuesday morning being the particular time of week when the universe apparently decides to hand you information you are not emotionally prepared for. My name is Mia Pellard. I am 23 years old. I have a degree in English literature that I am not currently using. And I have been working at Foss & Son Coffee since April, which is 7 months, which is 6 months longer than I planned when I took the job, and somehow also feels like it has been several years. I make coffee, I wipe tables, I arrange the pastries in the cabinet with a precision that Oscar, the owner, the Foss in question, there is no son, there was never a son. The son is a fiction Oscar dismisses as unnecessary, because, in his words, people know what a croissant looks like, Mia, they don't need it presented. Oscar Foss is 71 years old, approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, and constitutionally opposed to most things. He is opposed to music in the cafe. This is not a disco. To seasonal drinks. If you put a pumpkin in coffee, I will report you to someone. To the loyalty card scheme I suggested in May. So I should reward people for coming here too many times? That seems backwards. And 2, as far as I can tell, the concept of the cafe being busy. On slow mornings, when only 2 or 3 customers sat with their drinks and the place was quiet, Oscar could be found in the back room in his chair with his feet on the spare box of oat milk, reading a thriller with a cover so lurid it looked embarrassed. On busy mornings he moved through the cafe with the expression of a man who has been asked to do something against his religion and is complying only because the law requires it. The cafe itself was small and slightly scruffy in the way of places that have been exactly what they are for a long time and have stopped apologizing for it. 6 tables, mismatched chairs, a counter that predated me by several decades. The coffee was, objectively, excellent. Oscar had been making it the same way since 1987 and had no interest in being told this, and the pastries came from a bakery 3 streets over run by a woman named Cecilia, who had been supplying Oscar for 15 years and with whom he conducted a relationship of maximum mutual suspicion and total professional loyalty. Anyway, the reviews. I had been looking up the cafe on Google Maps to check our opening hours were listed correctly. I had updated them in August and wasn't sure the change had saved when I noticed we had 46 reviews. This surprised me. I had looked us up in April when I started and we'd had 11. I clicked through. We had a 2.8 star average, which seemed low. I started reading. 1 star by Coffee Explorer 99. Went in hoping for a pleasant morning. The owner looked at me as if I had tracked mud across his living room, which I had not. It hadn't rained in 4 days. The coffee was actually fine. Do not recommend. 1 star by London Foodie Real. Ordered a flat white. The man behind the counter asked me if I was sure I wanted it, as though I might have meant something else. I said yes. He made it. It was good coffee. He seemed irritated that I enjoyed it. 2 stars by Just Passing Through 88. The cafe smells nice and the chairs are comfortable. Unfortunately, the owner told me the Wi-Fi password, then stood nearby until I felt uncomfortable about using it. 2 stars. I scrolled further. There were about 30 reviews from the last 4 months. A sudden spike, and they all followed the same pattern. The coffee good, the experience hostile, the reviewer rattled in some low-key way that they found difficult to fully articulate but felt compelled to share. One person wrote, "I cannot explain why I felt judged for ordering a scone. I simply did. I was still reading when Oscar came out of the back room, saw me on my phone behind the counter, and said, "Is that urgent or are you just doing that thing where you look busy?" "I'm reading our reviews," I said. A pause. Very brief. Almost undetectable. "We have reviews?" he said. 46 of them. I looked up. "Did you know about this?" "I know about many things," Oscar said, and went to rearrange the cups, which did not need rearranging. Chapter 2. Username: a satisfied customer. I became suspicious properly on the Thursday. This is how it went. A woman came in at 10:30, early 30s, laptop bag, the specific air of someone working remotely and in need of a second location. She ordered a cappuccino and a croissant, took a table by the window, and opened her laptop. Standard. I made the coffee. Oscar emerged from the back room, surveyed the cafe, registered the woman with her laptop, and retreated. Also standard. What was not standard was that at 11 o'clock, when I went to the back to get more napkins, I found Oscar sitting in his chair with his reading glasses on and his phone held at the precise angle of a man who is typing something with 2 fingers and would prefer not to be observed. He looked up. His expression did not change. Oscar's expressions rarely changed. They existed on a narrow spectrum between neutral and faintly disapproving. But there was a fractional pause. "Napkins are on the shelf," he said. "I know," I said, and got them, and went back out front. The woman with the laptop left at noon. At 12:15 I checked Google Maps again, standing at the counter while Oscar made himself an espresso. There was a new review. Posted 11 minutes ago. A satisfied customer came in for a quiet coffee. A woman near the window was typing loudly on a laptop for 2 hours. There is no rule against this, and that is exactly the problem. The coffee was fine. 1 star. I read this 3 times. Then I looked at Oscar, who was drinking his espresso with his back to me, looking out the window at the street. "Oscar," I said. There's a new review." "Is there?" "It was posted 11 minutes ago by someone called a satisfied customer." Pause. He turned around, which was the mistake, because his face was doing something very specific. The face of a man who has been caught but is calculating whether the evidence is conclusive. "People post reviews," he said. "It's a thing people do, apparently. It's about a woman with a laptop who was in here until noon. Lots of people come in here with laptops. It was posted at 12:04. She left at noon. Which means whoever wrote this was here at noon, left immediately after her, and posted a review in 4 minutes." Oscar drank his espresso. He did this with great deliberateness, as a man who finds the espresso suddenly very important. "Or," he said, "they posted it on the way out. The review complains about someone else's customer behavior. Not the coffee. Not the service. Perhaps they are a very particular person. It says the coffee was fine. Every single negative review on here says the coffee was fine." He set down his espresso cup, adjusted it slightly on the saucer, looked at me with the expression of a man choosing his next words from a limited and unsatisfactory selection. "Mia," he said. "Yes, I am going to go read my book." He went to read his book. I stood at the counter staring at my phone. Then I went through the review history, properly. This time, looking at the dates. The spike had started in late June. Before June 11 reviews, averaging 4 stars, mostly people remarking on the coffee and the neighborhood feel. After June 35 reviews, averaging 1.8 stars. Every one of them describing Oscar in thinly veiled terms that were somehow simultaneously accurate and unfair. His manner, his silences, his tendency to look at you as though your presence in his cafe was a matter for philosophical reflection rather than commercial transaction. I pulled up the profiles of the reviewers. Coffee Explorer 99. Join June. London Foodie Real. Join June. A Satisfied Customer. Join June. Noda Robot Genuine. Join July. Definitely a Different Person. Join July. I put my phone down on the counter. Definitely a different person. I picked it up again and read that review. Definitely a different person. First time at this cafe. Will not be returning. Owner sighed audibly when I asked for oat milk. The sigh was grammatically complete. 4 syllables. The coffee was, I must admit, excellent, which only makes the whole experience more confusing. 1 star. I had been there the day someone ordered oat milk and Oscar sighed. I remembered it specifically because the sigh had, genuinely, been remarkable, a long, structured exhalation that managed to communicate an entire position on the commodification of dairy alternatives without a single word. I went to the back room. Oscar, I said. How many accounts have you made? He looked up from his thriller. I don't know what you're referring to, he said, with the serenity of a man who has decided that denial is a reasonable long-term strategy. Definitely a different person, I said. A long pause. That's a good name, he said. Oscar. He put the book down. Sit, he said, gesturing at the spare chair, the one that didn't have the oat milk boxes on it. I sat. Chapter 3. The Nap Economy. He explained it with the straightforward reasonableness of a man describing a perfectly sensible plan that he is aware, in some small corner of himself, is perhaps not entirely defensible. I am 71 years old, he said. I have been making coffee since 1987. I am tired. Then close the cafe, I said. I can't close the cafe. Why not? He looked at me as if I'd asked why he couldn't simply stop breathing. Because it's my cafe. I've had it for 34 years. My wife and I. He stopped. Started again. It would be like you wouldn't understand. It would just be wrong. His wife, Vivian, had died in 2019. I knew this from Cecilia, the baker, who had told me in the way that people who've known someone a long time pass on information about them. Matter-of-factly, and with love underneath. Vivian had helped run the cafe for 20 years before she got sick. The framed photograph behind the counter, a woman with dark hair laughing at something outside the frame, a cafe table in the background, was her. So you can't close it, I said. But you don't want it to be busy. I want it to be appropriately occupied. 2 or 3 people at a time. Ideally regulars. People who know how they take their coffee and don't need to be talked through the menu as though they've never encountered the concept of a beverage. He picked up his thriller, then set it down again. When it's too busy I can't hear myself. And I'm too old to pretend that doesn't matter. So you started leaving 1-star reviews. I started leaving accurate reviews, he said. Everything in those reviews is true. The coffee is fine. The experience is particular. I'm not lying to anyone. You're lying about who you are. I'm a satisfied customer, he said. I work here. I drink the coffee. The satisfaction is genuine. I opened my mouth. Closed it. He had a point, technically, and I found this annoying. How many accounts? I asked. He tilted his head slightly, doing the maths. 8. He said. Possibly 9. I lost track of one of the passwords. 9 fake accounts. Pseudonymous. There's a distinction. Oscar. This is, I searched for the right word. This is not a normal thing to do. Possibly, he said, with the tone of a man who has considered this and filed it under irrelevant. But it was working. In July we were down 30% on foot traffic. I had 4 consecutive naps. It was the best month I've had in years. I thought about July. It had been quieter. I had attributed it to summer, to people being on holiday, to the general unpredictability of the cafe business. I had not attributed it to Oscar sitting in the back room running a 9-account disinformation campaign against his own establishment. "What did you do with the nap time?" I said, because I was genuinely curious. "Read. Slept. Listened to the radio at a reasonable volume without anyone asking me to turn it down because it was what was the word ambience," he said this with considerable distaste. A woman in August asked me if we had curated ambience. I went and wrote a review immediately. I looked at my phone. I found the August reviews. There it was. Note a robot genuine asked the owner if they had curated ambience. He stared at me for what I would estimate was 11 seconds. Then he said, "We have a radio." I gave it 1 star, but I want to be clear, the coffee was the best I've had in this postcode. "The problem," I said slowly, "is that these reviews are not working the way you intended." "They're working very well," I just explained. "Oscar, do you know what going viral means?" He looked at me with the expression he reserved for questions he found obvious and slightly beneath him. "I'm 71, not dead." I showed him my phone. Chapter 4: The Discourse. It had started, as these things apparently do, with a single post on a platform I used but Oscar did not. Someone username Floralmyth, 22 years old from the profile. A person who posted primarily about coffee shops and bookstores and what she called hidden London had found the reviews and screenshotted them. All of them. In a thread that she titled "This cafe's reviews are the most unhinged thing I've read all month and I need everyone to experience this." The thread had been shared 40,000 times. I showed Oscar the thread on my phone, scrolling slowly so he could read. He read with the focused attention he gave to his thrillers, which is to say completely and without expression. The top comments. "The coffee was fine" appearing in every single 1-star review is sending me. Fine. Like he hates that it's fine. Owner sighed audibly when I asked for oat milk. The sigh was grammatically complete. 4 syllables. I have never needed to visit a place more badly in my life. This is clearly the owner reviewing his own cafe, and I will die on this hill. The coffee is always fine. He thinks the coffee is fine. He is leaving the reviews. Definitely a different person. Sir. I live near this place. I have been going there for 2 years. The owner did sigh at me for ordering oat milk. I gave it 5 stars because I think he's a legend and also the coffee is genuinely excellent. Oscar read to the end of the thread. Then he handed me back the phone. He was quiet for a moment. 40,000, he said. 43 now, I said. It was 38 when I checked an hour ago. He absorbed this. The young woman, he said, who wrote this post. She's 22? According to the profile. And she found she read all the reviews. And shared them. And wrote a thread calling them unhinged, I said, which in this context I believe is a compliment. Oscar was quiet again. Through the front window I could see the street, the October afternoon, 2 people walking past who did not come in. At the moment we had 3 customers, a regular named Tobias, who had been coming every morning for 6 years and who Oscar tolerated with something close to warmth, and 2 people I didn't recognize who were looking at the cafe's exterior with the specific expression of people who are checking whether they have the right place. They came in. Hi, one of them said, young, early 20s, phone already out. Is this the cafe with the reviews? We have reviews, yes, I said. The 1-star ones? where someone keeps saying the coffee is fine. I looked at Oscar. Oscar looked at the ceiling, briefly, with the expression of a man communicating with some higher authority from whom he did not expect sympathy. "That's us," I said. "Amazing." The customer looked around with evident delight. "Can I get a flat white?" "You can," I said. She turned to Oscar, who was standing behind the counter with his arms folded. "Are you the owner?" "Possibly," Oscar said. She took a photograph of him. He did not consent to this and also did not stop her, in the way that people are sometimes too surprised to do either thing. She showed the photo to her friend. Her friend made a sound of suppressed delight. "He looks exactly how I imagined," she said, in what she probably thought was a whisper. Oscar turned to me. "Mia," he said, very quietly. "Yes. If this is what I think this is. It probably is. I need you to understand that this is not what I intended." "I know. I intended the opposite of this." "I know, Oscar." He looked at the two new customers, who were now at a table and photographing the menu board. He looked at the door, through which two more people were now peering. He looked at me. "I'm going to make coffee," he said. With the resignation of a general accepting terms he finds unfavorable, but has run out of strategic alternatives too. "I'll handle the front," I said. By 3 o'clock we had served 22 people, which was a record for a Tuesday afternoon in October and possibly any afternoon in any month since Vivian was alive. Oscar made every coffee with the silent precision that I had come to understand was his version of caring, not enthusiastic. Not performed, just exactly right, every time. The flat white that went out to the woman who'd photographed him perfect, the temperature exactly where it should be, the milk texture smooth and matte. She drank half of it and said, to her friend, quietly but not quietly enough, "Okay, it's actually incredible." Oscar heard this. I know because his jaw moved slightly, the way it moved when he was preventing an expression from happening. At 4 o'clock, during a brief lull, I found him in the back room. Not napping. Sitting in his chair with his phone, typing. "Oscar," I said. "I'm not," he started. "Please tell me you're not posting another review." He turned the phone toward me. "A new review, definitely a different person. Came in today. Extremely busy." Someone took a photograph of the owner without asking. He bore this with more dignity than the situation deserved. "Coffee still fine, bordering on excellent, which remains the core problem. 1 star. I will probably return." I read it twice. "Oscar," I said. Bordering on excellent?" He took the phone back. "It's an accurate characterization. You're going to keep doing this, aren't you?" He looked at me over the tops of his reading glasses with the expression of a man who has found, against all reasonable expectation, a situation he has decided to accept. "The reviews are already written," he said. "It would be dishonest to delete them." Chapter 5 Fine, bordering on excellent. By the end of October we had been written up in 2 food blogs, mentioned in a newsletter about London's most characterful independents, and photographed for someone's Instagram series called Honest London, which featured places that were, in the caption's words, real in the way that most places have forgotten how to be. Oscar read this caption when I showed it to him and said, "That's pretentious." And then read it again more slowly. The woman who'd started the viral thread Floral Myth, whose real name turned out to be Isabel, came in on a Thursday with a friend and sat for 2 hours. She ordered a cappuccino and a pain au chocolat from Cecilia's bakery and wrote something on her phone while she drank it. Oscar circled the table twice in the way he circled tables when he was trying to decide whether someone was lingering acceptably or unacceptably. And on the second circle Isabel looked up and said, "Are you going to review this visit?" Oscar stopped, looked at her, looked at me. I made a very small gesture that I hoped communicated I told you someone would figure it out. But which may have communicated nothing because Oscar's ability to read my gestures was limited. "I review the cafe occasionally," he said, with immense dignity, "as a patron." "You're the owner," Isabel said. "Those aren't mutually exclusive categories," Oscar said. "Your username is definitely a different person. That is a common name." "It really isn't." They looked at each other. Oscar was 71 and had survived 34 years of the cafe business and the death of his wife and the general difficulty of continuing to exist in a world that kept changing into something he hadn't agreed to. Isabel was 22 and had 47,000 followers and the particular confidence of someone who has been correct about things on the internet many times. It was, genuinely, a close match. "The coffee is good," Oscar said finally. "That's what all the reviews say," Isabel said. "Then they're accurate." She looked at him for a moment. Then she smiled, not a gotcha smile, not triumphant, just genuine, and said, "Can I ask you something?" "You may ask," Oscar said, which was his way of consenting without committing. "Why does a man who makes coffee this good want fewer people to drink it?" Oscar looked at the table, at the window, at the photograph of Vivian behind the counter, laughing at something outside the frame. "I don't want fewer people to drink it," he said, quietly. "I want the right number. I want to make each one correctly. When there are too many, I can't." Isabel looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at me, and I looked at her, and we had one of those exchanges that happen between women. When an older man says something that explains everything and neither of you quite knows what to do with it. "I won't write about who you are," she said. "I'll just say the coffee's good." Oscar picked up her empty cup, examined it, set it down. "It's not just good," he said, in the tone of a man correcting a factual error. "Occasionally it's excellent. The reviews say fine." "The reviews are work in progress," he said, and went back behind the counter. November settled in properly cold mornings, the light going by 4, the street outside Foss and Son taking on the particular quality of London in autumn, when everything looks like it's been washed in grey and the grey is somehow not depressing but honest. We were busier than before the reviews. Not overwhelming. Oscar would not have permitted overwhelming, and I think the universe understood this and complied, but steadily, warmly full. New regulars appeared, people who had come because of the thread, stayed because of the coffee, and returned because of the specific atmosphere that Oscar produced. Which was the atmosphere of a place that was not trying to be anything other than what it was. Cecilia the baker doubled her pastry delivery. She told me this with great satisfaction, standing at the back door with her delivery basket. Because she had been telling Oscar for years that he under-ordered, and he had been ignoring her for years, and she was experiencing the pleasure of being comprehensively right. "Tell him the almond croissants are going by 10, she said. "He knows," I said. "Tell him anyway. I want him to have heard it from both of us." Oscar's review posting slowed but did not stop. He seemed to have found, in it, a form of expression that suited him, brief, honest in its way, categorically uninterested in being fair. In November alone, 2 stars by a satisfied customer. A man came in with a very small dog in a bag and placed the bag on the table. The dog looked at my coffee. I looked at the dog. Neither of us was happy about the situation. The coffee was, as always, considerably better than the company. 2 stars for the dog. 1 star by Notarobot Genuine. Overheard a conversation at the next table about brand identity. I have been coming here for 30 years. The brand identity is good coffee, don't push it. 1 star for the conversation. 5 stars for the espresso, which I am not permitted to give on this form. I printed that last one and put it on the wall behind the counter, next to Vivian's photograph. Oscar came out of the back room, saw it, read it, and said nothing for a moment. That's not for display, he said. I know, I said. I put it up anyway. He looked at it for a while longer. Then he went to the front of the cafe, rearranged 2 chairs that didn't need rearranging, and came back. The almond croissants go by 10, he said. I know, Oscar. We should order more. I'll call Cecilia. He went toward the back room, paused at the door. Mia, he said, without turning around. Yes. The coffee today. First batch. How is it? I had made the first batch that morning at 7:30, while Oscar was still setting up, because he had shown me his method in August grudgingly. With the air of a man parting with classified information, and I had been making it with reasonable consistency since September. Today it had been, I thought, quite good. Fine, I said. A pause. Then, from inside the back room, a sound that I was fairly certain, though I could not prove it, was Oscar Foss laughing. Bordering on excellent, he said. He closed the door. From behind it came the creak of the chair, the click of the reading glasses going on, the small, comfortable sounds of a man settling into a moment of peace in a place that is. Despite everything, despite the 1-star reviews and the viral threads and the small dogs and the oat milk size, exactly where he intends to be. I went to make more coffee. It was, I thought, going to be a good day.